So when you... Oh, Jim.
Jim. Smudge,
yeah.
And what I was saying about Jim, what a fantastic guy he was, and how the club wouldn't exist without him. It's all right.
Hello and welcome to this special Larkhall Athletic interview. This is a long-form conversation, about 45 minutes or so, and is a celebration of football, community and 50 years dedicated to Larkhall Athletic. For half a century, two names have been part of the fabric of this club. As players, managers, volunteers and directors, Clive Burge and Gerald have lived almost every chapter of the Larks' modern history. From those muddy pitches and fierce local rivalries to unforgettable victories and lifelong friendships, their journey tells the story not just of this football club, but of the community that supports it. In this one-off documentary-style special, they're interviewed by Paul Russell, and it's all been cobbled together by me, Goss. We'll hear about how Clive and Ger first arrived at the Larks and the people who shaped the club, the greatest teams and players they've seen, the toughest moments they've faced, and the memories that have stayed with them for a lifetime. Oh, and if you're watching on YouTube, enjoy photographs and snippets from Clive and Ger's scrapbooks, along with a tranquil walk around the home of Larkhall Athletic, Plain Ham. So wherever you're listening, at home, on your walk around the square, or up Salisbury Hill, or Little Salisbury, sorry about that, settle in as we look back on 50 extraordinary years at Larkhall Athletic. This is Clive Burge and Gerald 50 years a Lark.
Setting the scene then, boys. Okay, so when you think back to the very beginning, what are your earliest memories of this club?
Well, my first memory was coming up your training in 1968, and I was first to arrive, as usual, that's me, and there was nobody else around, but the little clubhouse door was open, and I walked in, and a man was stood on the chair painting the ceiling. He said, "What do you want, young man?" I said, "I've come training." He said, "My name's Richard Patrick, and I'm chairman of this club. Welcome." So that was my first memory. I think Budge's was probably before that, because he's a couple of years older than me. You might not look it, but he is.
Thank you, Joe.
When was your first memory?
My first memory is when I came up here to play my first game for Larkhall. We only had a wooden shed. It was no car park, just a wooden shed where we changed with the opposition. There was a tin bath in the middle of the shed there for wiping the mud off your knees at the end of the game. And that was the facilities we had. I can't even remember a toilet, to be honest. So how we managed on that, I'm not too sure. The pitch was on a slope, and it was quite considerable slope, really. But people used to say it favoured the Larks through having such a facility. But basically, we were just a good team.
When Budge talks about the slope actually went from where the spectators stand on the top corner to at least 15 foot below where the bottom corner of the pitch is now. It's amazing slope. And I think we played on that for the first 2 or 3 years of our career up here. And obviously everybody had played on that slope before. It's amazing to think about that now. It really is.
And what were the facilities like for supporters then? I mean, I guess there wasn't a stand or anything like that.
No, the first stand that we put up was a little stand that I can remember Tony Grace used to play for Bath City, Warminster, and he eventually became chairman, and Tony Grace was a huge part of this football club. You think he worked for British Gas?
Yeah, he did.
Did he?
Around Bathway, yeah.
And he had there was no bicycle shed around there. And I can remember Phil Tiley, who was another great character within our setup, and Phil was a real driving force. Phil said to me, "You've got a tractor and trailer, Ger, we've got a bicycle shed around Widcombe. He said, the Tony Grace is sourced. He said, would you go and get it your tractor and trailer? We can use it as a little shelter for spectators. So that was the first covered accommodation I can remember having up there.
And was that the cover that recently was demolished?
It was.
That led to the new stand?
It was.
Yeah, we used to extend on from there. We decided to make it longer and longer and longer eventually. Then we put some seats in there as well. So that was our grandstand for what it was worth. Going back to the slope, if I can, just before we finish on the slope, it's a good story I love telling. Is that when we were playing football, me and Gerald, we were defenders, we were ball winners, and you were able to tackle in them days, as you're not these days. And we perfected the good old sliding tackle. And the slope sometimes helped you in to gain momentum, much to the winger's dismay, really. But the story I love telling is the fact that on the bottom touchline, there were allotments, not the trees there are now. There was allotments there with just a metal railing going along, separating the pitch from the actual allotments. And at a certain time of the year, the stinging nettles grew up through the weeds near the fence itself. And the perfection of a good tackle was, on good wet conditions, you could launch yourself from about 3 meters back, take out the player and the ball, because that was allowed. Man and ball was allowed in them days. And if you got it perfect, you would pick up the player and then pin him either to the fence or in the stingers at the best. It's only at a certain time of the year you could do this. And that was what we would deem as the perfect tackle.
How times have changed.
Finishing the winger in the stingers. They used to be not happy with a tackle, but the stingers used to be just pop it off.
So you both defenders then?
Yeah, well, I was left back, Budge was right back. Well, I was always a midfielder in the youth football, and the first season I played up here. But when we went into senior football in 1969-70 season, I think it was, when Wilts Combination became about. It was the old Wilts Senior League, and they made another division called the league the Wilts Combination, and we were elected into the Wilts Combination Division 1. And that was our first big season together, really. Phil Tiley, who we'd mentioned earlier.
Known as Alfie as well.
Known as Alfie, yeah. Was a big driving force. And he had, for a number of years, evidently been trying to get the club into senior football. But there was no pyramid then, no automatic promotion or relegation. You had to be elected into the next division up. And we went into Wiltshire, which was
what sort of teams were in that? Any that's familiar
in Wilts Premier League at the time were teams like Melksham, Radstock, Wootton Bassett, Bemerton, Bromham, Highworth. All those teams were in the.
So some of those names are familiar to people.
They are very much so. Yes, yeah.
Of course, when we went in the Wilts League, they'd opened up a second division to house all the people. A lot of Somerset clubs played in Wiltshire as a way of playing senior football. It was our first taste of senior football in Wiltshire. What was one of the good parts about it again? It's not all to do with football. It's to do with mixing with the opposition afterwards. And we'd go to some clubs with beautiful clubhouses and bars, and we let go in and have a drink, talking to the opposition, being friends with them, and we had some good night outs and doing things like that.
Budge's philosophy back then was we'd beat them on the pitch, and then we'd beat them in the bar afterwards.
Right.
So we were great. So Budge and I were great socialisers.
Yeah, can I ask you then, what were the pitches, grounds, and the match day atmosphere like? So you're giving us a bit of a taste of it from the players.
Well, the pitches were nothing like as good as what they are now. Sometimes we played on absolute mud heaps, didn't we?
Yeah.
Professional footballers also did in those.
Yeah, and you wouldn't stop playing just because snow was on the pitch. The lines would be swept off. we'd play with an orange ball, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I still got orange ball down home now.
Yeah. So
So it
times
has to
are
be quite spectacular for a game to be off then.
virtually no games were off. Not back in those days. We play on absolute mud heaps, big puddles on the pitch, and actually, it was a great thing to play on in different conditions. Now, when the lads play on lots of pitches with 3G, perfect pitches, but they were very bumpy, bouncy in the summer or in August and April. They could be very bumpy and bouncy, and then in midwinter it was mud and slush, and sometimes snow.
But
and
of course,
frost.
when we went into the Wiltshire League, we had to. The pitch had been levelled by then. To go play senior football, we had to level the slope off and play on a level pitch, and we levelled it again at another future day, didn't we?
So we played, I think, 3 years in Wiltshire, and they were quite successful years. I can remember one of our first games is when we went up to Melksham, and in the Melksham side, back in those days, was Mickey Perrin, who was a huge figure at Melksham. Ron Lowe, who lots of the older people will remember from the Melksham days. I marked the right winger for Melksham was a man called Mel Gingell, who later became manager at Chippenham and places like that. And he was the first winger who, when I kicked him, he kicked me back. I thought, he's not a nice man particularly. But then a great learning curve for me was he came up to me in the clubhouse afterwards and he said, I was only 19, I think, at the time, and he said, "You can have a drink, young'un." And I thought, why is this old man, or not old man, but 30-year-old man, 10 years older than me, we just kicked each other to bits out on the pitch, buying me a pint. And he said to me, "What goes on out there, young'un, you can stay out there in this clubhouse, we'll always be mates." And I took that philosophy with me for the rest of my career, and it was such a wonderful learning curve for me.
Yeah, we carry that tradition on wherever we went, me and Gerald. Always, when we was at the club, we were last to leave up here. In fact, on one real special occasion when we had a good win, it went on so long chatting and putting the world to right that we got about 4 o'clock in the morning before we realised we ought to go home. And me and Gerald thought we'd rather kip down on the bench seats in the clubhouse. And we never went home that night. I got home about just as the milkman was arriving, and my dad was stoking the fire ready for the next day, and went in and went to bed.
So obviously then, a lot of the games were local, like Wiltshire. So I guess you've got tales of away trips.
Yeah,
like
but it only lasted
further afield.
Sorry, it only lasted about 3 years in Wiltshire, and then they threw all the Somerset clubs out for reasons I can't remember.
No.
And we joined the Somerset League then, and they formed the second division, and we went into the Somerset.
So that was like
Senior League.
73.
That was about 72, I think.
Yeah.
And the clubs that were in Somerset then were clubs like Manor Farm, Ilminster, Radstock came in there with us, Odddown, teams like that. And we had a very successful run in Somerset, actually. I'd captained the side in Wiltshire, and Budge took over the captaincy when we went into Somerset. And quite honestly, I mean, Budge was a huge figure then, and a lot more respected around the place than I was. And Budge was a really iconic club captain at that time. And Budge then captained us through Somerset, up through winning the Somerset Senior Cup, which was a huge landmark for us in 1976. We'd gone to the Somerset Senior Cup final, was always played at Welton Rovers ground on Easter Monday. And we reached the final in 1974-5 against Radstock. And we drew the first game and had a replay and lost the replay 2-1. I actually missed the replay. I got injured in the final and missed the replay, which was the first game I'd missed for, I think, over 200 games. But we went back the next season in the final again and beat Radstock 2-1. Fudge was captain then, and that was at the time a huge achievement for this club, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, massive, yeah. And still remains one of the highlights of my total career up here as the captain of the team. We were the first Bath team to win the Somerset Senior Cup. And so good celebrations were had by one and all.
How long did you both play for? How many years would you say if you combined it?
We probably played together for pretty well 10 years, I would say. We started our first game together in the reserves for only about half a season before we both broke into the first team. I mean, my first season was one of the biggest memories of the whole time at Larkhall. I got into the first team just after Christmas. I played it was in the Bath and District League then. I played the last 11 games, picked up a league winners medal and 2 cup winners medal. Cup finals were played at Bath City's ground at that time. So that was a huge memory for me as a 19-year-old lad to play in those finals. And then, of course, the next big thing after the Somerset League was we were elected into the Western League in 1976. And that was a huge thing for this football club at that time. And in the Western League then were clubs like Torquay United Reserves, Bournemouth Reserves, Bristol City Reserves, and nothing really prepared us for going to those huge football league grounds. You know, they were bigger pitches, lovely surfaces, and it was certainly suddenly a different game plan on those grounds.
So the club had advanced quite a lot through the Wiltshire League and then the Somerset League, and then they found themselves in the Western League. And obviously, how did the club do initially in the new league? Did we struggle, or did we make our mark quite quickly?
I thought the main priority was to stay in the league, really.
It was.
So there was relegation.
Stay out of the relegation zone.
Yeah. The pyramid had started being put in place by then.
And this is, did you say, like 76?
Yes.
And we used to do that quite successfully, and then we got middle of the table, and we started showing our weight and getting near the top. And they were great days. They were great days in the Western League. It was a friendly league, or generally all round. And we spent, I think, 35 years, this club, in the Western League before we won promotion to the Southern League.
But we did win the league, didn't we, at one point?
Yes. Dave King was manager in 1987, I think it was, when we won the Western League. But back to going into the Western League in 1976. I mean, we had gone from the Bath and District League through the county leagues into the Western League in 8 years.
Wow.
So that was a terrific achievement for us at the time, wasn't it? For 2 lads who really had no other aspirations than to play in Larkhall first team in the Bath and District League, which was where we were when we arrived at the club. So suddenly for us to be playing the Western League was an amazing achievement at the time.
So you played 10 years together, but also individually, how many years do you think you played?
Oh, crikey. I came up here when I was 18 years old, because the youth league in Bath ran to under 18s, and then I was 19 when I could join this club. And I played my last game when I was 50 years old. I haven't played consistently through there.
Stanley Matthews,
Well, not quite as good. But it was because I was running a team in the Bath and District. I never run the first team. Gerald has. I run the reserve side for quite a few years. We was always reasonably successful. I then took on the third team. It was when a lot of the old players at Larkhall, people in this football club used to play for the club forever and a day. They used to join it when they were young men and stay until their careers were coming to an end. And so we formed a team that was Bath and District level, and all those old players could play for me. And of course, we were quite a good team with the experience and everything like that. And we were reasonably successful. This picture behind shows us when we won the cup, having played. The final was on New Year's Day, 1st of January, and it carried on for quite a few weeks. We played 4 replays in that at Clandown under lights, and we eventually beat the wartime favourites, Oval Sports, to win that cup. And then eventually that team won the Baton District League and Division 1. So Larkhall's 3rd team won the Baton District Division 1. There's no such thing as a Baton District now. So if you look at the record books, and I've got plenty of memorabilia that we can go back on and dwell on, but if you look at those books, it will tell you that Larkhall Athletic have won more First Division titles than any other club in its history, in Baton District history.
Our playing careers, well, Budge's ended probably in 1980 as a first team player, and I took over in 1980 as a player manager up there, and Budge took over as manager of the reserves. So that was the start of the end for us, I suppose, although I did come back and play, or I played as player manager for 2 or 3 seasons then. That was hard graft because you just ran everything. You recruited the players, you took the training, you organised everything around the Western League first team setup. But it was one of the most enjoyable times of my career up here, really. It was a huge challenge. My mandate from the then chairman, who was, I think the chairman then was probably Tony Codd, but then later on the chairman, I think Tony Grace, took over the chair in about 1978, something like that. My mandate then was to keep the club in the Western League. We had no expenses at all. We just played for the sheer enjoyment of playing.
And yet we won it.
We won it in 87, which was not under my management. It was Dave King had taken over as manager by then. But I continued to play for a couple of years after that. And then I had a spell playing reserves and played for Budge in his Bath District side.
So when did you hang your boots up then? How old do you think you were?
I was, I think, 55. But I came back again as manager in 1992. And with Jeff Howell was my assistant. Jeff was a captain when we won the Western League under Dave King. He was captain, but he was a great friend of mine, and he was my assistant in 1992. Again, no expenses, but it was a nice, good time. And after I finished playing or managing in 1995, I went back playing in the Bath District League again then, and played with Budge's son and my son. And that was amazing to play with, children or boys that I'd seen grow up. It was another amazing experience. And I look back on my career and I enjoyed all those sorts of moments as much as I enjoyed playing in the first team.
My career really petered out before then. I used to run the sides, I was always maybe first substitute, second substitute, whatever it might be, and if needed I would go on. That was my run outs for those teams, because I said I played when I was 50. That's because I was running the Baton District side, and we only had 10 men, and I had to go on and sort of pulled a hamstring going down the wing, which finished my career, I think.
So, I mean, you both, combined, you played for the club for such a long time. And then obviously you went on into other roles, like managerial roles in Ger's case, and in your case, kind of managerial role as well, but with the second team. So, and obviously the club was having quite a lot of success, really. We were gradually moving up the leagues over this period of time that you were involved.
But the great thing about the football club was we moved forward off the pitch as much as we move forward on the pitch. And great things have been put in place over the years. We talked about levelling the pitch in 1973. We did a clubhouse extension, I think, in about 1984. A chap called Mike Wells, I think, was instrumental in some of that work at the time, probably. Mike Wells is a player we played with, an Irishman, and he'd come over, obviously, from Ireland, and he came over with his guitar. And he was a wonderful, wonderful singer, play his guitar, and we had some absolute amazing nights up here when Paddy entertained us. A huge, huge character, Paddy.
But then again, Larkhall's been built. That's the strength of Larkhall. Larkhall's always had, you played for the club and then you started working for the club or volunteering for the club. And you've all done different roles. You know, you either become a chairman, you become a secretary, you became a groundsman, you become any role that was going, you just turned up. And that applies today. There's still people this afternoon when we play our Saturday match, you can walk around the ground, I can tap the shoulder of people that was here when 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, and they're still here today doing something or other, either in the car park behind the bar, around the ground.
Well,
That's what makes Larkhall
well, you
great.
certainly became Mr. Larkhall, really, didn't you? You were certainly the head man up here. You ran the clubhouse, you organised the bar, you became groundsman, and if anybody wanted to know anything or want anything done, Budge would do it up here. And he was certainly head cook and bottle washer through 30 years after he finished playing. An amazing character who everybody really looked up to and looked to if they wanted to know anything about Larkhall.
Well, you can be at this club for 60 years without sort of know your way around a little bit, know how things happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've probably got 100 years involvement in the club between them.
Yes, we would have. I mean,
Yeah.
I used to do quite a bit years ago, but I'm a self-employed market gardener, and so time became limited for me. When I was a single man, I used to do lots of things up here. I can remember when we first levelled the pitch, I was the one who sowed the seed and harrowed the ground and rolled it. But my love has always been the actual football side of it.
Yeah.
And later in my career, I became director of football, and I enjoyed that role, working with managers like Neil Kirkpatrick and Wayne Thorne, Lee Collier, and recently Ollie Price.
So Neil Kirkpatrick was the manager in place when we got promoted, when we won the league, the Western League.
Yes, Neil Kirkpatrick won the Western League Premier Division.
Go up then, and then went to the Premier Division.
Not at that time. We didn't have the facilities in place when Neil Kirkpatrick won it, and we said at the time, if ever we got in the same situation, won it again, we would go up into the Southern League, or we'd apply to go into the Southern League. But I can remember one of the one of the most disappointing parts of my time up here was when 2 years after Neil Kirkpatrick,
because Neil got us promoted from one though.
He got promoted from one to Premier, won the Premier.
2007-8.
Yeah, won the Premier.
Yeah, 2 years later.
Yep, and then he stepped down as manager, and Lee Collier took over as manager. And despite us saying at the time, if we got in a situation where we win it, we would go to the Southern League, the committee at that time, a few months later, decided we weren't in a position to go to the Southern League. And I can remember playing at Corsham, and Lee Collier was manager, and going in the dressing room and having to tell Lee and the lads at the club had decided that we wouldn't be able to go forward at that particular time. And I can remember then coming back and talking to Budge and Jim, and us saying that we would make sure that we would put things in place if it ever happened again, because that was a dreadful moment, having to tell the players and Lee that we wouldn't be able to go forward.
And that was around 2010, wasn't it?
It was, yes. And then Lee resigned on the back of that, and Wayne Thorne took over as manager. And Wayne, under Wayne, we won the Western League Prem and the Western League Prem Cup, and got promoted into the Southern League the following year.
Before we go any further on that, can I just ask the question? This might lead on to this question, which is, if you had to choose one moment that sums up why Larkhall Athletic means so much to you, what would it be? And I guess the promotion to the Southern League would be one of those moments.
Well, there's lots of iconic moments, really, aren't there?
To say one is impossible to do. There's been so many. And
what ones come to mind then?
Well, it's all part of a journey.
Well, winning's nice to start with, but when you create a facility like we did with the clubhouse, the original clubhouse that's up here now was there was a cottage just up in Charmerdown way. I'm not sure exactly where the cottage was going to be demolished, and everybody, that would be the football team members, would go up, get all the stone from that cottage, bring it down here and build the first clubhouse. That's how it was created. I've got a photograph in my memorabilia that shows the cottage before it was knocked down and the clubhouse when we finished doing that. And then it was, Larkhall's always had this, I'm sure it should be our slogan, onwards and upwards. It applies to Larkhall so much. We've always tried to get better year by year. So it meant building the clubhouse larger, then putting the skittle alley side on in the kitchen, and then going out to fit all the regulations you had to do for joining the Southern League. And it's always improve it. And once you've done it, now look, we've got a 3G pitch out there. We've got a 250 seater stand. We've got fenced in all the way around. Our youth section are now joining us and use the facilities for training and playing.
And could themselves be in the Western League next season if things go well.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, it's a history, but it's a full history, and a history that if you wear a Larkhall cap, you've got to be proud of what we've achieved.
What's been the biggest challenge, do you think, then, for a club of this size? Often punching above its weight, I guess.
I suppose the biggest challenge is the financial challenge, really.
Yeah.
Supporting the expenses that incur all the time. Coach trips now, to go away on a coach is over £1,000. And the general expenses are, does cost the club a lot of money. So we're forever fundraising and trying to raise enough money to support the playing side.
When me and Gerald joined the club, we paid subs. We paid to play. That's what we do, and you needed to do that. I got very involved in the fundraising up here. When I could become club captain, one of the fellow committee members said to me, he's thinking about starting a 50 club, where everybody pays a monthly fee of £1 and we pay out some money and the club gets the other money. And because I was new on the committee, because when I would become a captain, you had to sit on a committee, so they told me. I sat on a committee, and the first job they gave me was to run that 50 club. I turned the 50 club into a 100 club. The 100 club then became a 200 club, and then people started leaving or dying off, or whatever it might be. And it's sent back to a 100 club. They maybe got fed up. We also sold lottery tickets. This is the day when lottery tickets, first of all, came into force. And so we joined it through dealing with another football club. It was Taunton originally, started to go in. And we used to take the lottery tickets and sell them. And the more lottery tickets you sold, the bigger percentage you would get. Well, that's like an incentive that Burge can't say no to. So we eventually carried on. We sold those tickets in, certainly at some stage, we used to give those tickets, some of the tickets, they had to the first team, and they had to sell those tickets to, raise funds for the club as such. We sold tickets in factories in Bath, at Larks, at Horseman's, and at Stollart's. There was three of us done rounds in Larkhall. I carried on that, selling tickets in Larkhall for 13 years, and we built up ourselves to 1,000 tickets a week we used to sell, and that used to raise terrific funds for the club. And occasionally we used to sell a £1,000 winner as well. So three of us done rounds in Larkhall, and the people of Larkhall came to the club a little bit really, and sort of embraced it.
So whatever era it is, raising money is always a massive challenge.
Yes.
It's a big important, very important thing for a club like this to do.
You can never have enough money.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did auction of promises and all sorts of
Yes.
things like that to raise money over the years. But it was all a challenge, but all enjoyable. And we were doing it with people we played with, were good mates. And the great thing about this football club now, I think Burge might have touched on it earlier, you come upon a Saturday, a match day Saturday, there is probably up to 25 volunteers doing all sorts of jobs to make the day an enjoyable experience for everybody. And of all those volunteers, nearly all of them have come through our period of time and are all great mates of ours. And that's our legacy, I suppose, as much as anything, that we're up here with a load of friends and mates that we've known, played with, worked with over 50 years. And what I love about it now is that people like Budge and I think we're quite well respected around the club, and it's marvellous to come up on a Saturday and all the young lads who are playing for us now know us and are happy to talk to us. And that is a really great thing to have and feel. So I love that side of it.
The social club is great at Larkhall. I'm going to say, going back a few years now, we formed a Sunday team, and those Sunday boys would get up on a Sunday morning, go and play football. They'd come into the clubhouse, get up to all antics, drink the over the bar. So much fun. They're still about now. They still come back, and no matter what you do, wherever you go, if you come back to Larkhall, you will see familiar faces that you knew 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. And that's what gives this club. But the Sunday boys were full of fun, full of nonsense. They still sponsor a game, come back in numbers, and certainly support the team at present and put a lot of money over the bar as well.
So before we ask about what you enjoy most about your role at the club now, just something about, is there when I said challenging, is there anything that's been sort of difficult or sad or a dark moment at the club? Because it sounds like it's been a fantastic sort of journey. And I just wondered, though, running a club, being involved in a club can have its difficulties.
I thought you might ask the question, and I've searched hard to find something that I don't like about this club. I've found it impossible. There's not a single there's not a single issue or a moment where I can say I hated the club, I nearly left. As a player, I played up here for a long time as part of the club, and everybody said, God, crikey, you spent your whole career out, why don't you move round like they do now?
Yeah.
Players move round fairly regular. And I said, the reason I never moved round is nobody asked me to play for them. That's how I stayed at Larkhall.
Jen?
No, I've enjoyed my whole time out here and still enjoying it now.
So, I mean, if you look at the achievements on the pitch and off it, I mean, even in the 15, 16 years that I've been coming and watching the Larks, I think the club has just transformed, and it's probably transformed several times over the years. We've just had a number of promotions to different levels. We've consolidated at Southern League level.
Well,
we're the longest serving club, I think, in the Southern League with our 12th season this season. I found the programme recently of the very first match when we played at Tiverton in 2014. And the programme actually misspells out the club's name, so we Larkhall Athletic. And that kind of sums up like Little Larkhall getting up into the Southern League and playing clubs like Tiverton, much bigger sort of traditionally.
Yeah.
And I mean, over the years, you've seen countless players come and go. Are there any players that really stand out for you, particularly over in the Southern League period of time, that you think, that would be in the sort of Larkhall top 11 of all time?
Well, certainly it's lovely to sort of remember, and the most ones you remember, the ones that score goals really for you. They stand out more than anything. We've had some terrific goal scorers up here. Can't win games if you don't score goals, and so you remember them more as you do a right back or something like that. But we always remember a lad that came down from London, and because his girlfriend lived in Larkhall, he came down asked for a game of football. Someone pointed him in our direction. He came up here, probably one of the best footballers we've ever had, and scored goals for fun. Chris Langthorne was his name. And
this is before Southern League days, isn't it?
Yes. This is
right back in Somerset, end of Somerset, and going into the Western League. Chris played for us for probably only 2 seasons before he moved on to Minehead, I think, who were then in the Southern League.
Yeah.
But it's hard to mention 1 or 2 players without mentioning a lot of other players, you know. Both of us, and the reason why we've been here for a long time is both we're very much team players, and you know, any team is all about 11 players pulling together, and that's been always our mantra over the years, isn't it? Really, is a team game. You know, and both on and off the pitch. And, you know, we've recently, our chairman now, Paul Rankin, has been the driving force of putting the 3G pitch in place, which is absolutely phenomenal facility now. Costs £1 million to put in place. But what it has done, it's stood us in good stead for the future. And I think with the facilities we've got in place now, I think there's, you know, our aim and ambitions and our aspirations are certainly to go to the next division. You know, and we're trying to put things in place, hoping that'll happen sooner or later. That's certainly our ambitions at the moment. But
yeah, so that was one of the questions, which is, you know, how far do you think this club can go in the future? So we're at step 4 now.
Yeah.
With the National League being step 1. It sounds like step 3 is there for us.
I think so. I think so. A club like AFC Tottenham were in our division only 2 seasons ago, and they've had 2 back-to-back promotion, I think it is, and they're now playing in the same division as Bath City. I mean, that would be my ultimate ambition and aspiration for this club, to play in the same division as Bath City. We had an FA Cup game against them 2 seasons ago, which was a marvellous game of football up here, and to think that we are virtually competing on the same level as someone like Bath City is remarkable for this football club. It really is.
Yeah, that was a fantastic experience for this club. The largest crowd we've ever had. And yes, it could have went back over the bar.
Yeah.
And for Bath City to come back in the second half on 2 given penalties, and then they scored a winner. It was 25 yards strike. They hit the crossbar and went in. But that was remarkable. That little Larkhall was playing big Bath City in an FA Cup match and nearly beating them. And then next year or the year after, little Larkhall's going to Stockport County. We're going into the Football League, the last 32 of the FA Trophy. We took coach loads of supporters up there and played in front of our biggest crowd ever, 3,500 people at Stockport. And anybody who went there had a thoroughly good day out, although we lost 3-0.
Good.
Is there anything else to add about? Because you clearly just love the club and it's such an important part
Yeah.
of you, and you're very proud of it. What is it in particular about the club that you're most proud of?
I suppose the most proud thing really is the longevity of people around the club, in as much as so many people have been here for so many years simply because they've been really part of the club. And to see where this club has come from in our time, from the Bath and District League when we started out, to now in the Southern League, and with the facilities that we've got in place, is just a testament to all the work that people like Budge and that have put in over the years.
And yourself?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah,
Obviously, you
okay.
don't like to sing your own praises too much, do you? I've done my best to back up people like Budge. People like Jim McClay over the years and Mervyn Lyles have been huge people at this football club.
There's almost too many to mention.
There are, and I don't like to mention too many names because you're always going to miss out really, really important people. And once you start name checking, then there's so many people over the years who've been so fundamental in getting the club to where it is today. It is amazing, really. Okay, all sorted, all done.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think we've realised.
Time to go.